Welcome to Flute Q&A number 38. This question is about cleaning your flute and it comes from Nikki. She says, in Flute Q&A number 31 about cleaning the flute, I wondered why you didn't mention polishing the keys and blotting the pads. My keys are often sticky after an hour's practice and various pads are often soaked. How often should those two processes be done? So that's an excellent question, Nikki, and I'll explain why I didn't include that in Flute Q&A number 31 for you. As a little overview, we can sort of think about cleaning the flute as having three parts to it. So the three parts are cleaning the inside with a gauze. I know that looks gross and dirty, but trust me, it's washed. And a cleaning rod. The second part is cleaning the outside of your flute with a polishing cloth. And the third part, which you mentioned, Nikki, is blotting the pads that you said, and we use cigarette paper for that. It's really thin, absorbent paper. All right, so how often should you do these processes? You should clean the inside. Hang on, I'm running out of hands here. You should clean the inside of your flute with the gauze, which I promise this is clean. It just doesn't look clean. After every time you play the flute. So the reason behind this, if you play the flute and you have a look inside this hole or up the end, or you take off the head joint, you have a look in there, if you see any moisture at all, you want to get rid of that moisture. You want to get rid of most of that moisture. So, and the way you do that, as you probably know, but I will demonstrate just in case, you put a corner of the gauze, which is quite absorbent material, and then through the end, flick it over the end, take your flute apart. For example, we'll do the head joint. Take your flute apart, put it in here and twist it around. Now, a lot of people take it out and go, but I can still see a little bit of moisture and it's really bothering me. It doesn't matter. As long as you get most of the moisture out, it's fine. You just don't want moisture hanging around in your flute while it's closed inside the case, because it will go moldy and mildewy and basically stink. So that's kind of gross. Definitely gross. If you leave your flute out on a flute stand, which I've got my flute on here, like this, I don't clean the inside of it because it dries in the air, dries naturally. So it's really only to prevent the moisture hanging around inside a closed flute case. Okay, so Nikki, I know you know that already because that's what I talked about in Flute Q&A number 31. The reason I didn't mention cleaning the outside of your flute with a polishing cloth is because I never do it. Because I think it's got something to do with the fact that I love teaching technique of the flute. Oh, my name is Jane, by the way. I don't think I said that. I love teaching proper technique of the flute. The little tiny movements of your embouchure, the little tiny adjustments to your body, your hands, your position, your practice technique. I love teaching this. This is what the nitty-gritty is that instantly improves someone's flute playing. And as a result of that, I don't care what my flute looks like. A lot of people do care what their flute looks like, and that is to be admired. Part of me wishes I was a little bit more than that. So it's 2022 now. During lockdown, you can see my flute tarnished a lot. Have a look at the black on my flute. And that's because I left it out on my flute stand because I didn't go anywhere. I left it out on my flute stand. I practiced most days. Never put it in its flute case because I had nowhere to go because we were locked down. As a result, my flute tarnished. When it's in the flute case, if you have I'll show you, a silver protector strip or an anti-tarnish strip that you can get from jewelers, by the way. So a jewelry shop sells these. Looks like something like this. Sometimes it's a different shape. That stops your flute from tarnishing while it's in the flute case. It doesn't remove the tarnish, it just stops tarnish forming. So if you want a shiny flute and you want to stop it from tarnishing, either keep it in the flute case with an anti-tarnish strip, or you can use this. It doesn't make it shiny, but it does keep sort of grime off it, and it does help. It does help with tarnish not forming. So this is so, oh my God, sorry, I can't speak. This is a polishing cloth. My cloth does not have polishing chemical in it. You can get cloths that are impregnated with chemical silver polishing. I don't use that because if you have a silver plated flute or a flute that's plated in anything, silvery coloured, if you use those cloths that have the silver polishing and makes it instantly shiny, like, oh my God, it's amazing, it's actually taking a slight layer off your plating of the flute, and eventually it will wear through that plating. So it's better to use a polishing cloth that doesn't have polishing chemical in it, just to look after your flute. Now, my flute is not destined to stay black like this when I get it serviced in the next few weeks, actually, because it needs a service. It's just due for a service. He will shine this up and it will look like new again. So you may like to look after the outside of your flute with a polishing cloth, which is great. Makes it keep looking shiny. Now, the other aspect to your question, Nikki, is the keys that have, what were your words that you used? Often sticky, and various pads are often soaked. Okay, so you might be wondering, why on earth would you have moisture coming out of your keys on your flute? Actually, I have done 2 videos in the past few years about this, and I'm going to put a link to both of them below for you, Nikki, to watch, or anyone else who's interested in them. One of them is called Why Does My Flute Dribble? And the other one is How to Get Rid of Spit Bubbles. Spit bubbles is my term for when you're playing along and one of your keys, let's say this bottom D sharp key, you press it down, but a bubble of condensation seals this hole. So it sounds like the key's not open, even though you've got your finger down. So that's what I call a flute bubble. And in that video, I teach you how to use cigarette paper to remove the spit bubble. The reason I don't do that regularly, Nikki, and the reason I didn't even mention it is because my flute doesn't get spit bubbles very often. Maybe once every few months I'll be playing along. There's certain atmospheric conditions, temperature, humidity, etc., that cause spit bubbles to form. Of course, when you've been playing for longer, they're more likely to form. I don't know why I don't get them very much. It's not specifically me, and it's not specifically my flute. I think it's probably the environment that I live here in Sydney. Even though Sydney is quite humid, I don't know why, but I find that they don't form that often. So you can watch those videos and I'll show you how to use cigarette paper to remove spit bubbles. And the other thing that you can do, it's slightly less elegant, but you open the key where the spit bubble is formed and you just blow out the spit bubble and it instantly gets rid of it temporarily. That's when you're playing and you're like, oh my God, I have a spit bubble. You do that and it's gone. You see oboe players do that a lot. They blow into their instrument, and clarinet players. So to answer your question of Nikki about how often I do those things, the outside of my flute, never. I had to go and rummage through my cupboard to even find this cloth. I knew I had one. I've never used it. So my flute's a few years old. I've literally never used this cloth, which is kind of hilarious. I was going to be self-depreciating and say that it's slack of me, but it's actually not slack. It's just that I have a real interest about the technique, the way the body works for the playing the flute, and tiny adjustments that you make to make your flute playing instantly better. Like, I just love that. I'm obsessed with that, and for some reason I don't have the brain space to clean the outside of my flute. Clean the inside of your flute every day. How often you do this? As needed. So there you go. Now, if you would like to have a beautiful looking flute, but also a beautiful sounding flute, and you would like to improve your tone, join me in the free mini course, www.flute.school, and I'll show you over 3 days a small technique change or an adjustment every day for 3 days, and it instantly, no kidding, instantly improves your tone. So if you'd like to do that, come and join me for free. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next Q&A. See you later.